Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Welcome to the QBC channel. Welcome to my channel on Facebook. This is Catching Feelings with John Sapanaro. So, of course, that means I am your host, John Sapanaro. This is the second episode we've ever done. We thought we were going live before Mets opening day, and that never happened. 4 days later, here we are, ready to go live, ready for Mets opening day. We got a ton of stuff to talk about. And the first thing that I want to get into is going to be a weird one, considering there's a lot of excitement around the Mets. There's a lot of excitement about getting the season finally started. The first thing I want to get into, because this is Catching Feelings, and I've got some feelings on it that really are just driving me nuts all weekend long, and that is Jed Lowrie, former Met Jed Lowrie, who had 7 plate appearances over the course of 2 seasons for $20 million. The guy was never healthy. We thought the guy was dead. The guy couldn't stand up. The guy couldn't walk. The guy couldn't do anything for the Mets over his entire tenure. 7 plate appearances, 0 hits. He signs with the Oakland A's. He goes back to them on a minor league deal. Next thing you know, season starts. He's hitting third. He is playing second base, and he is playing every day. And I promise we are going to get into the Mets stuff, but I know because I was looking at Twitter yesterday, and people were going nuts. How is this guy healthy? I assume Jed Lowrie is a good dude. I assume he is a decent guy. But someone, Brodie Van Wagenen, Jed Lowrie himself, the Wilpon, somebody who was involved in this that is no longer involved with the Mets, needs to come out and explain to us, because we never got an explanation. And I understand that this is old news, but I want an explanation. I want to know how Jed Lowrie could not stand up without a full body brace on his left side, and now all of a sudden he is playing every day. Look, he's only got 1 RBI, he's hitting 273, whatever. I don't care about any of that. I'm just so concerned with how this is even possible. We thought the guy's career was over. We thought the guy was going to have to walk with a cane for the rest of his life. I don't know what happened, but Jed Lowrie, good for him. He's playing baseball again, but Met fans want to know how. That's what it comes down to. All right. And I'm going to just get a quick reaction from our guest. We got a fantastic show today. This guy is a good friend of mine. He is a super talented comedian. He's an actor. You may have seen him on Law & Order SVU. You may have seen him on those hilarious Unmovers commercials for Optimum. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring in my friend Mark DeMayo, lifetime Met fan. Mark, how the hell are you, man?
What's up, John? How are you?
So, listen, we're going to get into all things Mets, but I want to know how you feel about this Jed Lowrie thing. I just feel like he stole money from us.
You know what? I don't even know what he looks like. I couldn't pick him out of a lineup.
That's what I'm saying, man.
I have no idea what this guy. I kept hearing about him. But I just never. I don't know what he looks like. I never saw him play. So
it's crazy because that offseason, the big talk was, Jed Lowrie on a small deal or DJ LeMahieu on a small deal. Like, they both were taking these kind of prove it deals. And, DJ LeMahieu is an MVP candidate. He signs the big deal with the Yankees. And you got Jed Lowrie who doesn't even suit up. And I just can't understand it. And that's, it has nothing to do with the Mets in 2021. But I just think that somebody, as Met fans, somebody owes us an explanation and maybe an apology, honestly.
I think LeMahieu has one of the most popular jerseys in baseball, too. He's up there.
He is. That's what I'm saying.
Top 25, I think, in most popular jerseys to get. Or it's unbelievable. And then Lowrie. Imagine who. I wonder. There's somebody who bought the Lowrie jersey.
Oh my God! I don't know, man. I remember. I didn't buy the jersey, but I remember being excited about it. I'm like, yo, this guy is, he's a little bit older. He was like 34, 35 when they brought him on, and it was like, but he could play a lot of positions. $10 million a year is good for him. He had just had, I think he had a 30 home run and 90 RBI season with the A's. And the guy can't even stand up, and I just can't even wrap my mind around it.
I think it's hysterical. If you do have a Lowrie jersey, you should wear it all season. Or whatever games you go to, you should wear a Lowrie jersey.
Anybody out there, if you guys are watching this right now, and there's a few of you, we want to know how you feel. Because like I said, I was scouring Twitter, and this is live on the QBC channel for Twitter and Facebook, as well as my Facebook page. But keep those comments coming in about how you feel about Jed Lowrie and the fact that he is playing baseball. And to Mark's point, do you have a Jed Lowrie jersey? If you do, I want to know about it. If you were one of the unlucky ones to come out of this situation with a Jed Lowrie jersey, I want to know. And you know know what? Maybe send me a picture, send us pictures. We'll repost them. But enough about that. Enough about Jed Lowry for forever. The reason why the Mets opening day is today is because of the Nationals. The Washington Nationals, for the second year in a row, right at the beginning of the season, had a COVID positive test. And so they had to suspend the first game and postpone it. And they wound up postponing the entire series, which, is the smart thing to do, I guess. But for Met fans, it was kind of a bummer. So, Mark, how excited were you? And then what did you do the last 4 days to just kind of wait and bide time until the Met season started?
What are you gonna do? I had to watch. I watched the Yankee game. I mean, yeah, I know as much as it. Watch the Yankee, and then I think they're 1-2, right? So, are they 1-2?
They're 1-2, yeah.
Yeah. So, So I, when I watch the Yankees, like most Mets fan, I root for them to lose, and so far they've come through for me 2 out of 3 games. So, do you do that? Do you? Are you? I don't usually bring up my my Yankee hatred up until like postseason. That's when I really go into hoping they lose every game. Like I watch every game hoping they lose.
Yeah, you know what? When I was a little bit younger, I used to root against them actively. Now I don't root for them. I don't care. Like I will just watch baseball. Like I watched it like you did, especially opening day, because my whole day was set up around watching the Mets on opening day. And I live out in Los Angeles now, so like my day was 10 a.m. I could watch. It was the Yankees were on at 10 a.m. out here, and then all of a sudden the Dodgers were on at 1, the Mets were on at 4, and it was like I was just gonna watch everything up until Mets baseball, and then there I am watching like Diamondbacks Padres, just like miserable.
Yeah. That it definitely it sucked, but there's really nothing you can do. It just goes to show you that as much as we want this Corona pandemic to disappear and to just go away so we could live our lives, it's not gone. It's here. We're starting off the season 3 games behind everybody else, and the only good thing is you say we haven't lost a game yet.
Yeah, and when you look at that, like obviously it seemed to be the right move, because then they had 4 more positive tests, among players and some for the staff. We're talking about the Washington Nationals, but it is kind of unfair that the Mets start behind the 8 ball like they did. Do you think there was something better that they could have done? The league, make them bring up guys from the alternate site, or it just seems sort of unfair that the Mets don't get to play these games. Now the Braves get to play the Nationals not at full strength starting tomorrow. And the Mets are going to have to make up these games further out in the season when, the Nationals are going to be back to full strength. So you think there was a way to maybe penalize the Nationals a little bit more, or just make it a little bit more fair for the Mets who didn't do anything wrong?
I don't know if you can penalize the Nationals. What I do know is that apparently there's the contact tracing. So where were these players? Who are they around? You got to kind of get it all situated, because you don't want to get the whole team sick. Obviously, you got a big roster there, and you could fill in the players. But if you don't really know, if it's one isolated player, listen, it's so complicated. But if that's what they're doing, if it's for the health of the players, for the betterment of the whole season, and we get it out of the way right now. Hopefully, Washington won't have a problem anymore this season. Hopefully, the Mets won't have a problem, because this could happen to any team, really. So, we gotta keep playing this game, and because at the end of the day, the most important thing is that the players are healthy, and that their families are healthy, and that nobody's getting really, really sick. So, what can you do?
Yeah, I agree with that, and I wasn't going to take it here because I don't want it to be a COVID-centric show, because we've all talked about it so much. But it's kind of interesting because Sandy Alderson and Steve Cohen met with the media today. They did a press conference, and one of the things that kept coming up was whether or not certain players on the Mets were going to get the vaccine. So they're not 100% across the board, and I don't know if there's a way to force people to get the vaccine. But when you do something, sometimes your job has requirements. Do you think that players in Major League Baseball and just across all sports should have to get the vaccine for just, the betterment of the team, of their families, of the league and public health? Or do you think that we just say, like, look, it's your choice. You want to get it, you get it. If not, that's fine too.
Well, now we're stepping into individual rights. And I think that, you have to respect somebody's individual rights if they're not comfortable with getting the vaccine. I got my first shot, and I managed to not catch the corona, and I worked part-time from the beginning until now. And it was kind of, I was just wondering, I'm healthy. I haven't gotten sick. Am I really going to inject myself with this right now? And then I thought, well, that's what I do with the flu anyway. I haven't gotten the flu in years, but I still get my flu shot. So that kind of ended that argument. It's an individual basis. I don't want to see these cards or whatever the tracking thing is that you have to get if you got your vaccine. It's up to the individual. So if these players, for whatever reason, don't want to do it, it's their prerogative. Now it's up to the team to say whether they can play or not. So, right. Because if they don't want to get the vaccine and the team says you can't play, they still got to pay them. So, that wasn't. I don't think it's in the major league contract. So, what is the player association contract that they have to get vaccines? So that would be an argument for court. And I don't think they could force the players to get it. Nor do I don't think the players should be forced to get it. But the team could always say, if you don't get it, you can't play. We're still going to pay you. But
right.
Hey, don't forget too, there was a lot of players that sat out,
right.
last season in all sports for whatever the reason was, and they took a hit on money, and they were willing to take that chance. So, who knows what people have for their reasons. Mm-hmm. But whatever it is, you have to respect individual rights. So that's where I'm at.
No, I mean, I agree with you on that. I didn't mean to put you on the spot with it. It's just such an interesting point of conversation because, again, you see the effects that it has on the entire team, on other teams, on the league. And generally speaking, I do agree with you. I just think, you can't force individuals to do anything that they don't want to do, especially when it comes to, putting things into their body and things of that nature. So just a curious question for you, since we were on the topic at least a little bit. For everybody who is watching it right now, we want to know your take on this. So again, this is streaming live on Facebook on 2 different places, also out on Twitter. We got 10 viewers in here right now. We want to know what you think about Jed Lowry, what you think about the Nationals screwing up opening day for all of us Met fans. And Mark, we'll jump back into the baseball side of it. So there are some advantages and some disadvantages for the Mets not playing on opening day. What do you think? Do you think these 4 days off is going to be a larger advantage or a larger disadvantage just in the first couple of weeks of the season?
Well, baseball goes, you're only as good as your next day starting pitcher. So it all depends on if DeGrom's going today, which he should, then – how is he affected by this? Because I'm sure he was pumped up and ready to go on opening day, and now it got postponed. So is he still going to be as pumped up? Maybe he's not as pumped up, and he'll actually pitch better because he doesn't have that adrenaline flowing through him anymore. He just wants to get it over with. So, as for the rest of the team, I'm sure they're all hungry, ready to go. I don't even know what you do in the meantime, though, when you're practicing and you're watching everybody else actually playing, and you haven't gotten up yet. So hopefully they'll come out of the gate and everybody be really excited and pumped up, and they a lot of energy, and then they're going to win tonight.
I think so too. I do think a little bit of it comes down to that, where it was a bummer for us as fans. It was probably a bummer for the players to not start and to watch everybody else get their season rolling. But today is opening day for the Mets. It happened 4 days later than it was supposed to, but it still is. So I think, when it comes down to it, I think the players are going to be ready to go. It seems like, they were working out down in DC. It seems like they've done everything to keep themselves ready. And, I think they'll be just as pumped up as they need to be. And, one thing that I do think is a big advantage for the Mets is that we look at the matchup, right? We had a great pitching matchup set with DeGrom versus Scherzer, something that we've seen before. But now that swings way in the Mets' favor because they're going to be taking on Matt Moore of the Phillies. And, you've got the best pitcher on the planet in DeGrom going up against the guy who, was lucky to crack the team's rotation. So in that way, like you said, momentum only as good as the next day's starting pitcher. It's got to swing way in the Mets' favor. Yeah,
I would agree. That's definitely a plus. And I couldn't even tell you how to make up these games. It's not one game. It's not 2 games. I know that Washington is not, it's not a trip to the West Coast, so they can make these games up. But now that it's 3 games, The next time they play the Nationals, maybe they could squeeze in one of those games, and then throughout the rest of the series, they can squeeze in another game. Each series, it's going to be difficult. They're gonna wind up paying for this in double headers somewhere along the line.
Yeah, the thing that worries me about the double headers, or frustrates me more accurately, is the fact that, this year they're still doing the 7-inning double headers. And that's just, to me, it's not real baseball. I think it's a bad rule. I understand why they're doing it to a degree. They want to make sure that, players aren't on the field as long, and, they want to make sure that people are staying as far away. It's all COVID related. But I just think, again, you've put the Mets in a weird spot now where they have to play, a couple 7-inning games potentially for something that is no fault of their own. How do you feel about that rule in general?
As far as the 7-inning game, the Mets have pretty good starting pitching going in. I like what they look like, and Carrasco gets back in that lineup. In the pitching rotation, it stalls time for him as well. So that's good. And if you can have your starting, the bullpen has always been, well, not always, but the last couple of seasons have been the Mets' Achilles. So if you don't have to go that deep into the bullpen, if you're lucky enough to have a starter to go into the 6th inning, then you really only need a closer at that point for 2 games. So it could work in the Mets' favor, I think.
That's actually a good point. And last week when we did the first episode of the show, we kind of previewed all the positions, on the Mets going into the season. And we had, we were like, okay, look, this is the strength is the starting pitching. The lineup is really deep. We broke down the bullpen. There's a lot of question marks in the bullpen. So that is a really good point from your perspective, that it kind of eliminates the guesswork there. And as a matter of fact, we got a comment coming in from Twitter that agrees with you. We got Malted Met that just says, great point. So it came in right as you were making that point about the bullpen. And then we got Alex Gio, who seems like probably a buddy of yours, saying, hey, what's up, Mark?
What's up,
So let's switch gears real quick before we dive into the nitty gritty of the entire series here with the Phillies. When we went live last week, the Lindor contract was hanging over the Mets' heads. It hadn't been signed yet. Now it's signed. It is official. Lindor is going to be a Met for the next 11 years, signs a 10-year, $341 million extension. I know that the dollar signs are crazy. That's a ton of money. But how did you feel about the extension? Do you think it's something that needed to get done?
Yeah, I was so happy that it actually got done. I was very nervous that they were going to go into that first game and it wasn't going to be signed. And then when they actually signed it before the first game, and then obviously the first game got canceled, but when it got signed, I was very happy. And it just goes to show you the new ownership with Cohen and Stephen Cohen, and they're right on top of it. So that was a very positive sign. As far as the money goes, I don't care. It's not my money. It blows my mind. Like 340, I don't care. Give him 400 million. What is it? It doesn't affect me at all. Who cares? Like when people argue, it's too much money. Why? Are you paying for it? Who cares? I don't know how much these people make. Apparently, he's the best shortstop in baseball. Okay, and so now we have one of the best players in baseball. If you get 1 or 2 more of those, plus we got the best pitcher in baseball. You get 1 more of those, you know what I'm saying? If Alonso could have another home run season like that, and you know what, I'll save that point. You'll probably bring it up, but it's just well, I was going to bring up the DH and the fact that
you can get into it. Go ahead, do it.
Well, the DH is something that I've always been for. I like the history with baseball. I like the fact that the pitchers were having to hit. It's just something for me anyway. And a lot of people disagree, whatever. But that's the way I was. I'm a purist. And then when you can see like Dominic Smith, there's Smith. I know Dominic. Is that his first name? Dominic. Anyway.
Yeah, Dominic Smith.
He could get into the lineup every day as a DH, or they could switch him and Alonso, and then that would eliminate a problem right there. To get that extra bat, that extra great bat. So that's when I switched my mind. I was like, you know what? If, they should just implement the DH, at least for this season anyway, so that help the Mets win.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you on the DH. For a while, I was like, look, man, I like that there's two sets of rules. I like that the National League has kind of always been the purest league. But for me, it's just been a fact that it's going to be inevitable. They did the DH last year. They did it because of COVID. All the other COVID rules they kept in place. They kept the runner on second base in extra innings. They kept the 7-inning, doubleheader rule, and they got rid of the DH. And they got rid of the DH because the owners want to use it as a bargaining chip for the next collective bargaining agreement. And to me, I think that's really short-sighted because pitchers didn't hit it all last year, and they're probably not going to hit next year. And when you look at that, there's no reason to run the risk of injury and having them hit this year. And to your point, it does benefit the Mets in an absolutely fantastic way. Yeah. I mean, the Mets are a better team with Dom Smith at first, Alonso DHing, Nimmo in left field, and a real center fielder, out in center field. They're just a better team that way.
Yeah, I agree. And with the exception of Bartolo Colon, I mean, how many pitchers are you actually excited to watch hit?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Mets do have some good hitting pitchers. They don't have as many as they used to because, Harvey was decent, Matz was decent, Wheeler was decent. They're all gone. And, obviously Syndergaard is hurt to start the season. So it's really just down to DeGrom. But that was one of the things I noticed when I was watching some of the other games around baseball all weekend. It would be this big-time clutch scenario, and all of a sudden the pitcher would come up, and, it's 2 guys on, 2 outs, and the pitcher strikes out or pops up to the third baseman. And I'm like, that's boring, man. And they want to make baseball more exciting. They want to keep the game moving, and having the pitcher bat is not exciting at all. I think it's the worst thing that you could do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm changing my mind. I guess you could say I'm officially have changed my mind. I think it's time to do away with the letting the pitchers hit and just go with the DH. It's an interesting position in that you have the ball in your hands every single time, so you can make or break the game. And now at the same situation, you're putting a pitcher up in a crucial time where, once again, not only does he have the ball in his hands the whole game, but he also has to hit. Yeah. So now he could actually help himself. It's a lot. It's just a lot of pressure to put on one player on a team. So yeah, I think it's time to do away with it. If we're going to do all the other rules, which I don't know. Listen, you've been at a game where it just goes on and on and on forever, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to end. So if you put the runner at second, it saves pitching. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It saves the whole team, injuries. What happens after, the next day or even that game when you're in the 16th inning and you played every it just screws up everything. The next day, catcher, how many catches do you have to use? Do you have how many? It's just, it makes sense.
I don't love that rule, but the one thing I will say is that I might be okay with. I just don't like that it starts in the 10th inning. I feel like maybe if you did that rule like in the 12th inning and just played a couple extra innings of quote unquote real baseball, I might be a little bit more behind that for everything that you just said, because I think it's fair. But, you don't necessarily need to see these 18, these 20 inning games that are 6.5 hours long. Like, you don't need to see that, but I would like to see them, all right, let's get through 2 extra innings and see if the game can end organically before.
It's funny that you say that because, when you're a Mets fan and you think back to like 86, I think it was the Astros. They played 19 innings, something crazy like that. How many innings was it? Was it 18, 19 innings that game?
Yeah, it's like one of the longest games in baseball history. I think it was only just surpassed not that long ago. but and
it was a playoff game, and it's just like one of the games that'll go down in history. I remember I was in the gym working out, and I was watching the game, and I watched the game to the 9th inning, and then the gym was going to close. It was a Sunday, if I recall correctly. So I went to the gym. I did a whole hour's workout, and I was watching the game in the gym, and then I drove home, and the Mets won on my drive home.
That's crazy, man. Like, it's a little young for me. Like, I was alive, but not watching baseball at that point. So
yeah, I watched the whole game, 9th inning. Then I went to the gym and I worked out for over an hour, and then I drove home. And I remember listening to the game on WFAN, and I remember the Mets won, and all the cars in Astoria started beeping their horns like crazy because the Mets just won, and that was an incredible feeling.
Yeah, you're from Queens originally, right?
Yeah, I'm from Astoria. And the funny thing is, I was a Yankee fan first. I grew up a Yankee fan because you said I was a lifelong Mets fan. I wasn't. I was a Yankee fan until I think 1981.
Okay.
Maybe I remember Steve Henderson hit a walk-off home. Because we lived in Astoria, so going to Shea Stadium was easy for us. You just jumped on the double R, you switched to Queensboro Plaza, you took the 7 train to Shea Stadium, and Steve Henderson hit a walk-off home run. It was a 3-run homer, and the feeling in the stadium, I'll never forget it, was electric. You could feel like something was happening with the Mets. And at the same time, the Yankees had David Winfield, and there was all this controversy between him and George Steinbrenner. And it wasn't, I'm a kid, I'm a baseball fan. I didn't want to hear about that kind of nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my friends on that on the train ride home, I said, from now on, because we were all Yankee fans, I said, from now on, I'm a Mets fan. And they were like, no, get out of here, no way. And I was like, yeah, man. And I've been a Mets fan ever since 1981.
That's funny because I did label you a lifelong Mets fan because I didn't know that story. We've never talked about that before. It's just funny how the off the field stuff can affect your fandom, because a lot of times nowadays people say, oh, you can't let that affect you. Like the owners are the owners or whatever controversy, like that's just, you have to deal with it. You're a fan of the team. And, that kind of resonates with the modern Met fan because for the longest, it's been the Wilpons before Steve Cohen bought the team. And we never got what we deserved. It felt like it always felt like we were a little bit behind the 8 ball, and we really didn't get what we deserved as true fans. So was there ever a point when the Wilpons owned the team and you watched them, especially post Bernie Madoff, was there ever a point where you were like, I don't think I can root for the Mets anymore because they're into too much and they're not invested in the team?
No, I mean, I was disappointed with the ownership because they wouldn't spend money. And like one thing that's great about Cohen is that, he's already mentioned the fact that if they get into a position at the end of the season where the playoffs is within reach and they're a player or 2 away or one, whatever it is, that they will go out and spend the money to get it. And that's what you want in an owner. And I believe him when he says that. And as well as I do that there was nobody coming to save the Mets when the Wilpons owned it. Whatever team they started with. And we actually went through seasons, if you recall, where we started with one team and we ended with a completely different roster. It was just, whatever you can piecemeal together. They were not going to invest any further.
Yeah, I remember some years where it's like, opening day, we got John Mayberry Jr. batting cleanup and Eric Campbell batting cleanup and like these guys that you're like, they sign them on minor league deals. Like every team needs depth, but you can't have that guy hitting cleanup on opening day, barring some kind of, catastrophic injury. But it was just because like the Mets weren't good and they wouldn't invest and they couldn't invest. And that was the most frustrating part for me. My fandom never came into question, but I also never thought we'd be in the position now where we have a real ownership. Like we have the wealthiest owner in baseball, and coming from the Wilpons, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's something that I never expected.
Yeah, we have the wealthiest owner in baseball, providing all because I remember when GameStop had the problem. And all of a sudden, he had a bad day, and I'm like, "Oh man!" with these guys, these hedge fund guys, it could be sink or swim. It could be broken to me tomorrow. This guy.
Well,
for right now,
that's not the case.
Yeah, for right now, we're riding high in the saddle, so hopefully we'll be okay. But
the guy's got $14 billion. I hope it doesn't go away overnight. He's made some bad choices if that happens.
Yeah. I agree with you.
I missed the comment from earlier, but I want to give him a shout out. Malted Met again said 100% agree. At least leave it until the 12th inning before putting a man on second, which was one of the things we were talking about before. One of the rule changes. Keep those comments coming in. There were a bunch early, not so much right now. It's all good either way. Me and Mark will take you through it. So we're talking a lot about Steve Cohen and the new ownership. And so him and Sandy Alderson had a press conference today. They talked about a lot of stuff. It was kind of the things that you would expect. There was nothing earth-shattering, but there's a couple things, because you touched on it when we mentioned Lindor, that I want to bring up to you now. And that's the fact that, Cohen's commitment to this team to spend. And the biggest takeaway from me is twofold. He said that they've already talked to the agents for Conforto, Syndergaard, and DeGrom, with the potential of extending their deals, which is so important, especially with DeGrom, because he's already signed. And then he mentioned this in particular. He said, I didn't buy the Mets for 1 year of revenue. I bought the Mets for a 30-year plan of what they could be. And to me, that was the most refreshing thing I could hear as a Met fan who, my entire life, the Wilpons have owned the team.
Well, there's this, what do they call it? Long-suffering Met fan.
Yeah.
That's what they call it, right? And when you get an owner like this, it seems like the jinx or the curse might be over. So I'm praying that this guy stays alive, he stays healthy, he stays away from GameStop. And, you know what I'm saying? Because, listen, he's got a plan. I love his plan. And like what you mentioned about just with these players, like, for example, DeGrom, why wouldn't you want to just give him whatever he needs right now to make him feel comfortable, make him feel at home? And now you got the best pitcher in baseball. You got the best shortstop in baseball. And you got a powerful, 1-2 between Dominic Smith and Pete Alonso. And that's what you need. You need that nucleus, and then you build around that. Hopefully Conforto will step up this year, and he'll become, even if he's just our Bernie Williams, man, let him do it, man. Let him stay in that lineup and hit his, because they're good kids, man. They're good kids.
I agree with you there. It's the chemistry of the team is almost as important as how good they are on the field, and that's not always the case. Obviously, you could have the Bronx Zoo Yankees that hated each other and fought with each other, but this group of guys is so easy to root for. They're such a likable group. You could see that their chemistry together really plays. So it's stuff like that I really enjoy. Seeing these guys kind of grow together, and Cohen's commitment to keeping guys here, because you can't help but look at the fact that, if he bought the team 1 year earlier, we might still have Zach Wheeler. I was not a huge Wheeler fan. I thought he was a little inconsistent with us, but he was the kind of guy that, we invested a lot of time in, and you want to see them keep guys like that on reasonable contracts. So when he says he's already talked to Conforto, he's already talked to Syndergaard, he's already talked to Stroman, these guys who are impending free agents, that's so important to hear that. Look, he may not sign them. Conforto is from, out by Seattle. He might want to go, live on the West Coast. Who knows? But just the fact that they're actually engaged in having these conversations. When you go back to Jose Reyes, right? The Wilpons didn't even make Reyes an offer, and he was one of the best shortstops in baseball. He was still an electric player, and they were like, no thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like they got insulted that somebody would ask for money. There's my son played baseball. He played for Cardozo, and they won the city championship. And I remember the coach there he was always he was a great coach, but there was always this thing about production. Whoever's producing is going to play. Whoever's hitting is going to play, and it's a little bit of pressure on you to produce. Now, I'm not really sure the psychology behind giving somebody the contract that they want. Are they still going to perform at that high level? Or are they still going to put forth the effort? That's why you have to have really good people that you're signing to those contracts, because what happens is once you eliminate that pressure of having to produce because you're in a contract year or you're a year away from your contract year. So it's interesting. We're going to see something. We're going to see if this idea works, because up until now, it's, you're only as good as what you did for me yesterday. So hopefully it works. Hopefully paying these guys and they're comfortable and they gel as a team and they're all pulling for each other. Hopefully it works if they don't have to worry about their money and leaving and moving.
Yeah.
They feel good. They feel at home. I hope it works. To me, it would. I would love to play like that.
I agree. I think it's one of the things that gets thrown around in all sports is culture, right? They always say that. Change the culture. It's the culture. It's the culture. And I don't know, sometimes it gets a little overblown, but I think in this case, what you're saying is it's important. You want to make your team an attractive destination to go to.
Yeah.
That's the Mets. We've seen it where, with the Jets haven't always been the most attractive team to go to. It looks like that tide is turning a little bit. We saw the Knicks, and guys don't want to go to these teams. You want to have a team that is a destination. And I think that's really what you're saying.
Yeah, you want to have a team that has a reputation of taking care of the players and backing their players. And if you look at Keith right here, Blacknick, he said the Mets offered money to over 1 a.m. for free agency. He signed with the Marlins without asking for a counter offer. I loved Jose Reyes. I think he was when it's one of your players, it should be really hard to get rid of them. Jose Reyes was a Met.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It should be hard to get rid of Derek Jeter, a Bernie Williams. It should be hard to get rid of those guys. They were always up when it came time for contract negotiations. But at the end of the day, the Yankees signed them. And that's what the Mets have to do. If you want the player, you got to be able to sign them. And that proves to the fan base that you mean business, that you're in this to win this.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think, Keith's point is sort of that and he's at Media Goon over on Twitter as well, great Mets fan, and, the driving force behind the Queens Baseball Convention, which is, who we're partnered with doing these shows. So thanks to Keith for always tuning in and watching. But I think his point is that, the Mets, the Reyes wanted to leave the Mets, and just kind of made that decision from jump. But I also think you can't absolve the Mets in that situation because the Mets decided to pay right. And I think it was they were going to pay right and they were never going to pay Reyes. And, we don't know if Reyes just jumped at the better offer. We don't know if Reyes wanted to go. We don't know if, Reyes was kind of told like, look, man, we're not going to give you money. This is our first and final offer right from the jump. None of that would surprise me with the Wilpon-owned Mets.
Yeah, but you bring up an interesting point. It's like because David was going to get the money, Reyes wasn't going to get it. Why? It just so happens that this is Major League Baseball. You're in the biggest market in the freaking country. You can afford to pay both players. If they're both up, you got that side of the infield solidified. Between shortstop and third base, it's solidified. Make them freaking happy.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think that's the biggest thing. And Keith said, that's what he heard, and he's throwing in now that the Marlins told Reyes he was going to be their star, which obviously did not take because they traded him a season later. You can't really trust the Marlins in that sense. But I think that's the biggest thing when it comes down to the Cohen-owned Mets is that, and he said this during the press conference today, not in so many words. He said, look, the fact that they signed Lindor is great. It's not going to stop them from signing other people that they think they need to sign. Now, he also said that he wouldn't just sign anyone to any number. He doesn't, approach business or baseball like that, where he's going to I have to do this at all costs. But he looks at it and says, look, we made an investment in Lindor. Now that's done. If we have to invest in DeGrom or Conforto, it's not going to stop us because we already spent the money. And with the Wilpons, it was like, well, we spent that money. Aren't you happy? We signed David Wright. We picked one. We picked him. And to your point, it's like, no, man, we need both of them. You need more than one guy, one franchise player in baseball. I
like Cohen's approach to free agency and as far as re-signing players and stuff like that. He mentioned the luxury tax and how if it's worth it, like is it worth it going a couple of $1 million over the luxury tax and having to pay the tax? No, but if you're going to sign a player that's going to be an impact player and you're going to go way over the luxury tax to get him, then at that point, if he's going to bring you championships or at least close to them, then it's worth it. And I really like that approach. He's leaving it all on the table, and it's a player by player situation. It's not a question of the luxury tax. That's not something that's an obstacle, but it just has to be worth it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And we got Chris Maloney, who kind of refuting what Keith said. He said, as per Reyes, he was not offered a contract. And, I think it's that discrepancy that we just saw unfold where, and Keith is pretty well connected to the Mets in some cases. So, if he says the Mets offered money to Reyes, I do believe that. But, there are conflicting reports. And I think it's almost like that's the biggest problem that the Wilpons had as Mets owners. We always felt as fans we were being deceived or shortchanged or not given everything we deserved or something like that. Whereas, to your point with Cohen, I just don't feel that. I feel like it's transparent, and I feel like his approach is, look, like we just want to win, man. We're going to try to do everything we can to win. And if we got to spend some money to do it, we will.
In all fairness, to Chris Maloney, he mentioned that Reyes was offered a contract, and to Reyes, he could have been like, "There's no contract. There's no contract at all. There's no contract. No, there's not even close." It's like is it real money? Are we talking? Are you kidding me right now? Just to save face for the fans, we offered him a contract.
Right.
Because a lot of these players, they have egos, and they're looking at their contemporaries playing across town or across the country, and they want to be in that money. It's just because they'll bust each other's chops, breaking each other's balls. So you have to kind of sort of be in the ballpark. Just because you offer a contract doesn't mean somebody has to bite. It has to be the contract has to have bite. It has. We want you. We want you much more than these other teams want you.
And that's one of the things that the Wilpons were always indicted for, especially after. And that pun is fully intended, by the way, with indicted. But that's something that Met fans always took them to task for because they would make offers to players. They made an offer to Vladimir Guerrero. They made an offer to, certain guys, but they wouldn't go the next, they wouldn't make a reasonable ballpark offer. Look, money in baseball is insane. You want to argue that it's crazy to give somebody $341 million to play baseball, whatever. But again, it's not our money. It doesn't affect what we do. Mm-hmm. And we're just looking at it like, well, guys as talented as Lindor get paid. And in order to keep them, you got to pay them in that range. It's just what it is. Keith, who's been super active, said the Wilpons were snake oil real estate salesmen. And I do agree with that. I think everything was like almost a con, a get over. How can we, make a little extra money? How can we make it seem to the fans like winning is the most important, but it isn't really the most important thing? So, look, Wilpons are gone. We kind of went off on that tangent, but, we got a few minutes left here. So I want to get into the game itself. And guys, keep those comments coming in across Facebook, on QBC, as well as Twitter for the QBC, or on my Facebook as well. This is Catching Feelings. We got Mark DeMayo here, great Mets fan, great comic, great dude. Let's break down the Mets-Phillies series that starts in just a couple hours. So Phillies started off 3-0. They got a really good start out of the gate. They beat a good Braves team, close games, and now we've got they're facing the Mets. We got DeGrom, we got Stroman. Advantage Mets in the first two pitching matchups, and then in the third game, it's David Peterson and Aaron Nola. So when you just look at the landscape of this game the next 3 days, Mark, what do you see? What do you want to see? And what do you expect?
I hope that Stroman gives us everything that we'd hoped for when we got Stroman. That's all. Consistency, and I hope he gives us a good outing. I'm pretty confident in DeGrom. We always know what he's going to bring, and Stroman is the question mark here. He has the potential he's got to be really, really good pitcher, and I'm hoping that he comes through. As far as the pitcher for the third game, I have no idea who the hell he is.
That's David Peterson. He came up last year as a rookie, pitched pretty good for the Mets. He's a left-hander.
240 pounds.
Look, they're definitely at a disadvantage there because Aaron Nola's great. He's real good. And I think the Mets need to win the first 2 games and then let the chips fall where they may. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Mets will win tonight for sure. And then I think, tomorrow is a little bit of a coin flip game. But to your point, if Stroh is going to be the guy we thought he was, he's got to win that game. And then, you go into the 3rd game up 2-0, looking for the sweep, and you kind of let things fall where they may. Malted Met, just with the crying, laughing emoji, I think that was in reaction to you saying that you don't know who David Peterson is, which is fair. He's pretty nondescript. He's got a nondescript name, too. So,
He looks good on paper.
Not the only one.
Does he have a pretty girlfriend?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
You know why I bring that up, right?
No, are you talking about, is it Matt Harvey thing?
Moneyball.
What happened?
Moneyball. He's ugly. Yeah. He's not going to be good. Like, they had this whole scene there.
That's right.
Yeah, he's got no confidence. He's got an ugly girlfriend. Tell me the guy's girlfriend, I'll tell you how good he's going to pitch.
Oh man, I just rewatched that movie like 2 months ago, and I forgot about that scene entirely. But yeah, you got
a hot girl waiting for you in the stands. You're gonna produce that day. You're gonna get on base, or you're gonna strike everybody out. Important stuff right there.
We got to find out if anybody watching this knows the attractiveness level of David Peterson's girlfriend or fiance or wife. I don't know. Just let us know. Throw it in the comments across Facebook or Twitter. Mark, let's take a look. This is something that we talked about. I talked about with my guest last week. It was Chris Monty, another great comic. The Mets lineup. It's a little strange. It's not exactly how I would go about it. And so about an hour ago, the lineup for tonight's game came out, and it's official. So in the leadoff spot, they've got Kevin Pillar playing center field. Then they've got Lindor in the 2-hole, Conforto in right field, batting 3rd, Alonso at first base in the 4-hole, J.D. Davis batting 5th at 3rd, Jeff McNeil at 2nd, McCann catching, Nimmo in left field, and then, of course, DeGrom. And what's weird to me, this is a left-hander on the mound, so I understand getting Pillar in there as a right-handed bat. But what's weird to me is having Nimmo start and not Dom Smith, and having Jeff McNeil so far down in the lineup. What's your reaction to the lineup in general?
I would always look to squeeze in Dominic Smith, whichever way I can, just because he's the type of player that the more he's in the lineup, the better off he's going to hit. He needs at-bats. So I would always be looking to get him at-bats, whichever way, even if it's sacrificing defense a little bit. I know in the end it's going to pay off in run production. So, it's tough. It's going to be tough to squeeze, to juggle these people around, but I want to see him in there. And as far as, the center field goes, then I would have to put it, I would have to go with whoever's going to play center field other than, I don't know whether it's who plays center field, Nimmo or Conforto.
It's gonna be a combination of Nimmo and Pillar, who's playing tonight, and Albert Almora. I think those 3 guys will kind of rotate in and out at center field.
Well, there you go. I mean, to me, I know you want to get Pillar in there, get him. But to me, I want to see as many games as possible with Alonso and Dominic Smith in there, because they're both power hitters, and you got to get around them. And it's a lot of work for the pitchers. And Dominic Smith is a great hitter, man. You got to get him in there, and he works better with more at bats. We've seen that. We've seen him. It's the sporadic gameplay with Dominic Smith that hurts you. That hurts him.
I agree with that. The thing that's curious to me is that, obviously Nimmo and Smith are both left-handed hitters, and there's a left-handed starter on the mound today. But I think Nimmo is probably, over the course of his career, a little worse against lefties than Smith is. So it's curious to me to see Nimmo starting and Smith not. And I do think it's defense and trying to get another right-handed bat in there. But I talked about this last week. I know Nimmo is an on-base guy, and he's good at the top of the lineup. But especially in games where he's not leading off, I think you have to get Jeff McNeil up there, because I think Jeff McNeil needs more at bats. I think he's wasted hitting down 6 or 7. And, if you're not going to lead McNeil off, if you're not going to lead Nimmo off, I think McNeil's got to be up there. I don't want Kevin Pillar getting more at bats than Jeff McNeil.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I definitely think that's where I would go. I agree with you. I got no
I mean,
idea.
look, I at this point that is the lineup, and I don't care, what happens now because it's already been said. I just want him to come out and win. So maybe Pilar will make Luis Rojas look like a genius, and he'll get 2 hits and knock in a couple runs, or make a big play out in center field. He is, him and Almora are definitely the best defensive center fielders that we have. I mean, look, man, I'm just excited for Mets baseball, and as we get ready to wrap up here, that's what I'll ask you. Like, so we're 4 days late, but the season starts in about an hour. How are you feeling? How excited are you? And what do you think the Mets are going to do this year? I mean, you don't have to give me a number on wins, but what kind of team you think they'll be all season?
I can't tell you how many games they're going to win, but I can tell you they're going to win the World Series.
I love that. I love that confidence, man.
I'd love to see them beating the Yankees too, but the Yankees will never make it.
I love that. It's funny because you saying that you grew up like when you were much younger being a Yankee fan, and then you kind of switched over in '81. I do see now why you root against the Yankees, because it's almost like it's like your ex-girlfriend. You don't want her to have you don't want her to have the good things.
Yankee fans. It has nothing to do with the team. Like the players, I mean, how could you not love some of these players that the Yankees have on their team? What's that guy? Well, not the guy who's always hurt, Stanton. The other guy.
Judge?
Yeah, the guy looks like that guy. How could you not love that guy?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's so many players on that team. You got to love him. I mean, the guy is such a beautiful kid. And they're kids, after all. I'm 53 years old. I look at these guys. My son's 24. They're kids. They're kids. How could you not love these kids? So, yeah. But at the end of the day, if I could piss off a Yankee fan, yeah, that's what I live for.
I'm sure there's not a ton of Yankee fans that are going to watch this because it is so Mets-centric. But if they are out there, I hope that they heard that loud and clear, because that is my – I told you earlier, I don't root against the Yankees, generally speaking. I just watch and whatever happens. But for me, I agree with you. It's more about the fans of the team than it is about the players on the field. Players on the field, they do what they're going to do, especially now that guys like Jeter are gone. Like, I was always like kind of over Jeter being so successful. The guys now, like, I have no hatred for him. So it's just the Yankee fans that get under my skin.
Yeah, I mean, when you go back on Mets history and you think about the fact that we could have had A-Rod and we could have been going back and forth between – having the best shortstop in baseball and competing against, because he was a better shortstop. There's no doubt about it. Especially, but that would have been it. Give him who cares about the office? Give him the whole freaking right side of the stadium.
I agree.
Was so stupid. It just goes to show you he probably didn't want to come here anyway. But they should have made that deal. It would have changed the Mets back then completely. One of our biggest mistakes ever.
I agree, and even the way A-Rod's career ended, and the steroids and stuff, but the A-Rod contract talks, that was pre-Bernie Madoff scandal. So like this was when the Mets were spending money, and they were spending, they were always in the top 5, sometimes in the top 3 in payroll. And so it was crazy to see them walk away from that deal. Steve Phillips was the GM, who was a terrible GM, but he was another guy, threw money around. And so, and they were like, oh, he wanted a billboard and he wanted the office. It goes back to what you said before. Just make the offer, man. The guy's the best player in the world.
Give him whatever he wants. He's the best player in baseball.
Yeah.
Give him whatever he wants. You might have never heard about the steroid scandal because the whole thing came to fruition. If you ever watched that documentary that's on Netflix, it was because he owed that money. The guy who he was getting the steroids from owed $4,000 to some freaking guy who was addicted to tanning. And it might never have happened. He might have had a different hookup. He could have got it from somewhere else. It might never have happened. You know what I'm saying?
What could have been?
Yeah, it could have been him, Keith Hernandez, and Ron Darling in the booth right now. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't love A-Rod in the booth, but
I like him. I think he's very knowledgeable, but I think that the Mets, if anything, they have the best, they put on the best show if possible. There's nobody better than Ron Darling and Keith Hernandez. And I'm sorry that I'm not thinking about the guy that I can't think of his name right now.
Gary Cohen.
Gary Cohen. That's you can't hear better baseball than that.
I
totally 60 or whatever station they're on, 880. What the hell is that, man? You listening to? You can listen to that the AM radio for about 5 feet in New York City. The only people that get to hear the Mets game on the radio are the people. You ever see them when they're over on the overpass on the highway with the American flag and they're going like this with the transistor radio?
Yeah.
You ever see those people? They're listening to the Mets. Those are Mets fans right there. The crazy person on the overpass with the American flag listens to the Mets like this on the transistor radio. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever seen that? Yeah, there's always one guy out there.
That's the only way you can do it. That's the only way you can get the signal for 880 is, you got to get a transistor radio and stand up somewhere high enough that you can get the signal.
It's so unbelievable that's our radio station.
Listen, man.
He's got to fix that. That's one thing Cohen's got to fix.
Yeah, just like let him buy a radio station and just make whatever changes he wants.
Let him kick the Yankees off of 92.3 K-Rock. Outbid him.
Yeah, he could. I mean, that's the thing. He could do whatever he wants. And look, I'm looking forward to the season starting. I know you got to get out of here. We're just under an hour here, anyways. So I hope you enjoy the game. I hope you enjoyed coming on the show. I enjoyed having you.
I loved it.
We will definitely talk later on in the season. If you want to come back on, I'd love to have you on again.
I'll always come back. I love this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And before we get out of here, anything you want to plug? You got any shows coming up? I know you've got your podcast, but anything you want to let these fans know?
I'm recording an album on Sunday night, April 25th at the New York Comedy Club on 4th Street. We're doing 2 shows. It's 7 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. And I'm going to be doing I'm going to be killing it. We're coming back strong. It's for 800-Pound Gorilla. You're going to be able to listen to it on Sirius, Spotify, iTunes. All the jokes are going to be on there. You'll be able to purchase the album there. But if you're in New York and you want to come and you want to get tickets, please visit NewYorkComedyClub.com. And I'd love to have you.
That's fantastic. Listen, guys, if you've never seen Mark do comedy, he is absolutely hilarious. New York Comedy Club is a great venue. It's one of the venues that I miss now living out on the West Coast, but Mark is fantastic. So go see him if you can. I'm sure there's, mask rules and stuff like that, but just it's worth it. Do the mask, do the social distancing. Mark is hilarious. And we'll take us out with this comment here from Malted Met said, great show. Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. And of course, thank you, Mark DeMayo. I will see you soon, buddy. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it. The next one. Thank you. Good luck, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Catching Feelings. Thank you guys for tuning in. Mark DeMayo, absolutely fantastic guest. We will have him back on after the album recording because we'll ask him a little bit about that too. Why not? We'll get into all of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, happy opening day. In just about an hour, we are going to watch Mets baseball. Jacob deGrom is on the mound. I've got my Keith Hernandez jersey on, the Road Grays, the other one hanging up behind me. We are ready to go for Mets baseball, so we are out of here, and I will see you on Friday. We're doing another edition of Catching Feelings. Friday, it will be 11 a.m. on the West Coast. So just check it out. I'm going to post all about it. We've got a great guest coming up, Chris Frangiola, who is a dear friend, great comic. You may recognize him. He was a cast member and the head writer for Chelsea Lately for all those years. So that is coming up on Friday, April 9th. Tune in, Catching Feelings with your host, John Sapanaro, my guest, Chris Frangiola. We will see you there later.